Throughout African history, women have held positions of leadership. Whether they were queens or chiefs or leaders of movement, women have indeed written their names in the annals of African history. Call them whatever you like: boss ladies, feminists, women rights activists, dictators. These African queens and warriors led men to war, ruled kingdoms, and called the shots. Some even resisted European domination and colonialism. In this video, in no particular order, we bring to your view the top 13 most powerful queens in ancient Africa. In 1828, Ranavalona I became the sovereign ruler of the Kingdom of Madagascar. She ruled for 33 years. After positioning herself as queen following the death of her young husband and second cousin Radama I, the queen pursued a policy of isolationism and self-sufficiency. She reduced economic and political ties with European powers, repelling a French attack on the coastal town of Foul Point. In 1832, Ranavalona forbade the practice of Christianity among the Malagasy population, and within a year, nearly all foreigners had left her territory. On August 16, 1861, the queen died in her sleep. 12,000 Zebu were slaughtered and their meat distributed to the population in her honor, with the official mourning period lasting 9 months. Although Ranavalona has been traditionally depicted as a cruel tyrant, modern historians view her as an astute politician who effectively protected the political and cultural sovereignty of her nation from European encroachment. Foremost of noble women, that's the meaning of her name. Hatshepsut was a female pharaoh of Egypt. She reigned between 1473 and 1458 BC. Her rule was relatively peaceful, and she was able to launch a building program that would see the construction of a great temple at Luxor. She also launched a successful sea voyage to the land of Punt, a place located somewhere in the northeast coast of Africa, present-day Eritrea and Ethiopia. The fact that a woman became pharaoh of Egypt was very unusual, but Hatshepsut ruled as pharaoh rather than wielding power as the great wife of a male king. Initially, Hatshepsut was to serve as a regent. She did this for 3 years, until for reasons unknown, she became a pharaoh in her own right. She took on a full throne name and statues were created depicting her as a male king right down to the beard. Soon after her death in 1457 BC, Hatshepsut's monuments were attacked, her statues dragged down and smashed, and her image and titles defaced. Although Hatshepsut was given a befitting burial in the Valley of the Kings, her memory was not honored. Queen Amina, according to the Kano Chronicles, was born around the year 1533 when her mother, Queen Bakwa Turunku, reigned in Zaria, then known as the Zao. Zaria is now a major city in present-day Kaduna State, northern Nigeria. Amina's family was very rich as a result of trade in imported metals, kola, cloth, salt, and horses. As a result, Amina was able to perfect her military skills with the warrior of the Zazao cavalry as a young woman. Her dexterity and aristocracy eventually led her to emerge as leader of the Zazao cavalry, during which she acquired great wealth and numerous military honors. By the time Amina was to assume the throne of Zazao, she had matured into a fierce warrior, which earned her the respect of the kingdom's military. It will be pertinent to note that during Amina's time, men did not feel threatened when women ruled or were in power and influential positions. It was a general belief among the Hausa people that anyone could be in a position of authority, regardless of gender. In fact, women could oust men who were not effective in their duties. When Amina was queen, Zazzau was located at the junction of three major trade corridors of northern Africa, connecting the Sahara with the internal markets of forest lands in the south. The fall of Songhai and the resulting opposition for the control of trade routes among the powerful kingdoms incited continual warring among the Hausa people and their neighbors during the 15th and 16th centuries. In this continued strife for power and eminence among the Hausa state, Zaria for a time achieved dominance under Amina. The queen led her first military charge a few months after assuming the Zazzau throne. For most of her 34 years' reign, Amina kept fighting while expanding her kingdom to its greatest in history. With an army of 20,000 men, the Hausa queen tried to annex several surrounding cities up to Nupe and conquered Kano and Katsina. The expansion of Amina's kingdom guaranteed Zaria's prosperity, and she brought wealth that were unheard of to the kingdom. She boosted Zazzau's wealth and power with gold, slaves, and agriculture. She also introduced metal armor, including iron helmets and chain mail, to her cavalry. To protect Zazzau, Amina built many fortifications around various conquered cities. Many of these walls are still existing to this day. Candace or Candake was a name given to any queen or empress of Ethiopia by the Europeans, and these great women were seen to be wives of the gods or the living god. Candace of 332 BC has a particular story that still stands tall today. Despite little knowledge of these queens, this legend made its way out. Her actual name was said to be Amanirenas. She was blind in one eye due to losing it in a battle with the Romans and was known to be a fierce, tactical, and uniting leader. A legend in the Alexander Romans claims that when King Alexander the Great attempted to conquer her land in 332 BC, she arranged her army strategically to meet him and was present on a war elephant when he approached Ethiopia. Having assessed the strength of her armies, Alexander decided to withdraw from Nubia, heading to Egypt instead. This account originated from the Alexander Romans by an unknown writer. It is commonly quoted, but there seems to be no historical reference to this event from Alexander's time. The whole story of Alexander and Candace's encounter appears to be legendary. Ya Ashantewa was an influential Ashanti queen of the Ashanti Confederacy in present-day Ghana. She was a skilled farmer before ascending to the title of Queen Mother in the 1880s. It is believed that she was chosen for this title due to the matrilineal culture of the Ashanti people, and that her elder brother, Nana Akwasi Afrane Okpase, who was a powerful ruler at the time, appointed her to the role. As a Queen Mother, Ashantewa held many responsibilities, including being the gatekeeper of the Golden Stool. Additionally, since the Queen Mother is the main advisor for the king and thus is the second highest position within the empire, she fulfills the role of guarding the Golden Stool. In 1896, the Ashanti began to rebel against the British presence in their land and the British attempt to construct the Gold Coast colony. To retaliate, the British captured and exiled Ashantene Prempeh I, king of the Ashanti, and Ashantewa's grandson Kofi Tene, who was also a powerful ruler. The British removed the king and other Ashanti leaders to the Seychelles Island in an effort to acquire the Golden Stool. While the remaining leaders within the community debated on how best to respond to the British threat, Ashantewa held her ground and rallied troops. Her leadership and passion led to her role as Commander-in-Chief of the Ashanti Army. In turn, the Anglo-Ashanti wars against the British became known as the Ya Ashantewa War of Independence or the War of the Golden Stool in 1900. To inspire the leaders of the community, Ashantewa proclaimed that if the men of the kingdom would not defend the people, the women would rise to the challenge. Her action invigorated the men and challenged traditional gender roles. She led a rebellion and became an image of strength and resistance. Unfortunately, she was captured during the rebellion and exiled to Seychelles, where she died in 1921. Yaa Asantewaa is credited as the last woman to ever lead a major rebellion against European colonialists. Ahebi Ugabe was a prostitute who became the only female king in colonial Nigeria in the mid-1920s. Ahebi was born at Enugu-Ezike, present-day eastern Nigeria, around the year 1880. When she was 13, she traveled to Igala land in search of work but couldn't get one. In the process, she resorted to become an autonomous sex worker and used it to her advantage, learning to speak diverse languages. In addition to her Igbo tongue, Ahebi could speak Igala, Nupe, and Pidgin English. With the money she made from prostitution, Ahebi Ugabe then ventured into business, which solidified her as a successful foreigner in Igala. She traded in palm oil and horses and was one of the most influential horse traders in the Igala-Igbo land borders. Around the year 1918, Ahebi Ugabe returned home. As a polyglot, it gave her an undue advantage and the ability to lead the united people of Igala and Nupe to her homeland. In fact, she was the only one in her village who could communicate with the British colonialist, playing a mediator or spokesperson role between the white man and her people. When Ahebi Ugabe returned to her village, she was able to displace Ogu Okegu, the man the British had put as a village headman. A headman in the British colonial system in eastern Nigeria was to govern the village under the supervision of a divisional officer who was usually British. This system of government was unpopular among the locals and the headman was usually ceremonial. However, Ahebi's rise would change everything. Therefore, barely months after returning from exile in 1918, the British appointed Ahebi as a warrant chief, the only woman in colonial Nigeria to be appointed thus. It was permissible to the colonialists because Ahebi had helped them in conquering her village. As expected, the male chiefs resisted Ahebi's appointment, especially as she was a woman, but their dissent voices were subdued because of the British support for Ahebi. As a result, to consolidate her power, she alienated them from the affairs of state. As it was anomalous for a woman to be king in Igbo land, Ahebi traveled to Igala, where she held her coronation. She was crowned by the Ata of Igala amidst great celebrations. For a woman to be king was not strange to the Igala people, as they had once had a woman as king around the 1500s. So, the Igala people honored the new king and sang many songs enhancing Ahebi's kingly qualities. They did this for days. When entrenched in her reign, Ahebi became autocratic, and with time, many of the people became sick and tired of her rule. They also condemned her sacrilegious ways, where she refused to consult with the chiefs, received bribes, and took other men's wives by force. However, she remained king till she died in 1948. Her respect and awe had dissipated compared to the early years of her reign. With the fear that her people might not accord her a rightful burial, she performed her own funeral rites in 1946, 2 years before her death. Angola's Queen Nzinga is one of Africa's most celebrated women rulers who resisted European colonialization. Nzinga Mbande waged a war against the Portuguese in Angola for 4 decades, from the 1620s to the 1660s. Nzinga's capacity as a negotiator and military strategist remains unchallenged. She was directly responsible for reducing the Portuguese colony in Luanda, present-day Angola, to a few square miles. Nzinga had 3 main policy objectives. 1. She wanted to stop the conflict between the Portuguese and her people, which destroyed the plateau of Luanda. 2. She wanted to obtain the diplomatic recognition granted to Congo from the Portuguese